Sit back, relax and enjoy listening. No one had come to his aid, not even when it would have been easy for them. The realization hit him like a wave. None risk their lives unless they truly care. RK's breathing quickened as this realization echoed in his mind, replaying itself in countless ways. The silence of his apartment amplified his thoughts, and the storm within him refused to settle. He leaned back, his body tense, his eyes shut tight, trying to force calmness into the chaos. But the fragments of that memory refused to fade. They looped, intensifying until his mind conjured a different scene, one he hadn't allowed himself to fully confront until now. Then out of the haze he saw her SV. She stood amidst the chaos of the flames, her movements sharp and purposeful as the fire licked at the walls around them. RK watched, transfixed, as she cut through the suffocating smoke with a resolve he hadn't expected. This was no mirage. It was her real, fearless and unyielding. At first, she was a shadowed figure cutting through the inferno, her movements purposeful yet reckless. The smoke blurred her form, but as she drew closer, RK saw what he never thought he would, her face unhidden. For the first time, she wasn't wearing her signature sunglasses. Without them, her eyes burned through the haze, sharp and full of determination, yet carrying something else he couldn't quite place, a rawness, a truth. In his semi-conscious state, the memory unraveled further. SV was there, fighting against the heat and danger with an urgency that defied every belief he had held about her. She wasn't the ruthless, cold-hearted figure he thought he knew. This SV was different. She knelt beside him, her hands gripping the heavy pillar that had trapped his leg. Her face, usually unreadable, revealed flashes of fear, frustration, and resolve as she fought to free him. RK remembered how his own efforts to speak were silenced by the sheer awe of her presence. His gaze locked on her eyes, deep and unguarded, unclouded by hatred or rivalry. He saw something that contradicted everything he had ever thought about her, a complexity and depth that left him stunned even amidst the chaos. She was risking her life for him, the one person he believed she despised more than anyone else. And yet there she was, her movements urgent, her focus unshaken. It was her determination, her refusal to give up, that reignited a spark of hope within him. Even as the flames roared around them, all RK could do was stare at her, captivated by the contradiction of this moment. She was anything but the person he thought she was. In his half-sleep state on the couch, RK's heart began to race. The dream shifted, morphing into a cascade of memories involving SV. He saw their countless encounters, their heated arguments, and their moments of reluctant care for each other. He remembered the time she had hurt her hand during one of their arguments, and despite their animosity, he couldn't stop himself from wrapping it with a bandage. He saw her refusing to eat after her mother had pressured her to marry, leading to her hospitalization. He remembered rushing to the hospital upon hearing the news. Unable to bear the thought of her suffering, he said yes for marriage in that moment, when he saw her like this without thinking. Then came the memory of their unexpected marriage. The image of her in a white gown flashed before him. Her gaze during the ceremony was anything but hateful. It was steady, almost vulnerable. He recalled how her mom had placed her hand in his, the same hand he had once held to stop her from hitting a reporter, the moment their tumultuous story had begun. And when that unexpected stone came, everyone rushed inside. In the chaos, SV had almost fallen. He had caught her just in time, holding her in close as chaos swirled around them. She had been unable to open her eyes, and in that moment, RK had felt an overwhelming urge to protect her, to shield her from the world. As the memory shifted, RK started getting restless. Beads of sweat dotted his brow, his hands clutching at the couch. His breathing became erratic, his heart pounding as next scene played out, one that left him with an ache he couldn't name. He saw her again, but this time, it was that stone-cold room. She was sitting there hugging her knees, her face pale, her body rigid, and her eyes shimmering with tears she tried to hide. For the first time, he had seen her vulnerable, and the sight had shattered something inside him. In his memory, he could feel the ache in his chest as he watched her break down, her strength unraveling in a way he had never thought possible. The woman he thought was invincible had crumbled, and it left him restless even now. But then came the moment that eased his turmoil. He remembered taking her from that room, holding her close to his heart, refusing to eat or move. He remembered her face softening as he coaxed her to take a bite, her stubbornness melting under his quiet persistence. She had eaten from his hand that night, her trust a silent acknowledgement that left him breathless. And when she finally fell asleep on his lap, her face serene and composed, he had felt a peace that washed away every question, every conflict. In reality, as RK's subconscious relived these moments, his heartbeat began to slow. The rapid thud in his chest softened, the sweat cooling on his skin. His breathing steadied, the tension in his body dissolving as his mind quieted. SV's calm, sleeping face lingered in his memory, her vulnerability a balm to his restless heart. For the first time in what felt like ages, RK's turmoil gave way to an unspoken truth. SV was far more than what she appeared to be. As his dream faded into the recesses of his mind, a strange sense of comfort settled within him. His face, once marked by strain and conflict, now mirrored the peace he had seen in hers that night. In that quiet moment, RK fell into a deep, uninterrupted sleep, his subconscious finally at ease, his heart unknowingly tethered to hers.